Detours family, welcome to another episode. As always, I am sitting here with my beautiful wife, Deb.
Hi, guys. Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. Happy first episode of 2025. Hope you guys had a great start to your year. I guess this is the time that everyone's looking for new beginnings. It's interesting. Did you know that the real calendar year actually began on April 1st?
No.
Which is why they call it April Fool's Day. The brand new beginnings shouldn't start in the dead of winter. So it used to begin on April 1st, right? When spring was here and everything was coming to life. I don't remember the full backstory on it, but hundreds, maybe even thousands of years ago.
Fascinating.
The new year actually started on April 1st, and that's where the start of April Fool's. I don't know enough about it to make it interesting for the audience.
Okay.
I don't remember enough of the backstory, but for some reason it just occurred to me that January 1st is not the time for new beginnings, because this is when people are shutting themselves in their homes, at least in Chicago, maybe not here in Florida, but where I'm from.
Warm. Today was gorgeous.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We actually started the year off great for you. You
Thank
went
you.
roller
I
skating.
thought so. Yes.
You were scooting around. We went to some outside basketball courts, outdoor basketball courts, and you've been dying to go roller skating.
Yes.
So
and,
you just skated it up.
I ate, concrete before we got to the smooth surface. So, I got my first fall in of the year, and I survived it.
You got back up.
I did. Yes.
Maybe a little bruise on the tuchus or something.
For wear,
but
yes.
you got back up and got on your feet and got out there. So yeah,
it's harder to endure when you're getting up there in age, and you're just like, that's going to leave a bruise.
It was, I was proud of you for getting back up though, shaking it off.
Yeah. After the big moan.
Yeah. Big moan on your hands and knees, all the neighbors looking at you kind of funny,
Oh yeah.
Like, what is this woman out there doing, trying to learn to roller skate?
I did look like a baby chick just coming out of the shell.
Oh yeah, totally. But you know what? I would have looked even worse if it was me. My gosh, balance is not an ally of mine at all.
It's not an ally of mine.
Balance and flexibility are my enemies.
Yes.
My gosh, ask me to bend over and touch my toes if you want to laugh. It's pretty good.
Man.
But yeah, I think today's episode, we do want to talk through just New Year's resolutions.
Goals,
Yeah, goals that people may have for 2025, certainly from a spiritual perspective.
Yeah, and you and I definitely have a different philosophy on New Year's resolutions. You're more, if you were going to do it, you would have done it. And I'm like, it's a new beginning. So talk to me a little bit about your kind of theory on it.
Yeah, and again, this is just a single opinion. I'm sure there's all sorts of evidence to conjure. Okay, whatever. So yeah, for me, I think what is it that said it's the second Friday of the year is the number one day to quit your resolutions. Typically, I think
that's the statistic.
Yeah, it's by the second Friday. So this year it would be January 10th. By January 10th, all the people that have vowed to lose weight, January 10th is the average day that they stop going to the gym. It will last a week and a half, according to statistics this year.
And they'll be shoving cookies in their face after that?
You just if that's what they were doing before, that's what You're a creature of habit, right? You got to put in a lot of work to break cycles.
True.
So yeah, I am not of the opinion if it's important enough to you, don't wait until January 1st to hit the reset button. That already says to me that you're not wholeheartedly in it. If you're willing to delay the start, if it's not important enough to start right now, that's
I can
probably not a good sign. So, from a spiritual perspective, if your goal is to pray more, or if your goal is to spend more time in the Word, whatever it may be, insert whatever variable there you want.
Get started right now.
Like, why would you wait? It makes no sense to me. Why would you wait until January 1st to start praying more? That's a really important part of your spiritual life, your spiritual walk. Now, what do you think? You were a different perspective. You were all about gung-ho January 1, use it as a slingshot, shoot you out.
Yeah, I think out of the two of us, I'm slightly more optimistic, right?
Definitely. Eeyore versus Tigger.
For sure. And I think that there's something in our humanity that longs for new. There's something that's very indicative of this is a new year. This is a new moment. And I get to start over. And I get your philosophy. I do. If it was really important to you, you would have done it. And that's why when we had
you would start now.
Right. And we had some wellness goals that we started in November, and everyone's like, why? You're going into the holidays. And it was like, well, this is important for us. But I also think that you get a chance to begin a new journey. And it, to me, is somewhat indicative of being a new believer, right? A new believer has this fresh perspective of, wow, all my sins are forgiven. Like, you know, that newly in love with Jesus, and everybody, like, you just have this glow about you, and people are like, wow, you're so different. And you're like, yeah, I gave my life to Jesus, and you're just on fire. I think we have the opportunity to do that every year.
But I would say, but you also don't wait to get on fire for Jesus until January 1st. No. You do it right. You do it when the Holy Spirit moves, you know?
True. So I'm just not anti resolution.
Yeah, I guess I'm not anti-resolution. I can certainly see. Here's another subject that we have differing perspectives on. Reading through the Bible in a year. If you were going to do that, I can see why January 1, because that's a definitive, easy to track starting date.
Yes.
And it's easy to calculate, am I on track or am I not, as opposed to starting October 27th.
Sure.
You know, with that, so there are instances where I can see how it is beneficial, but I don't normally subscribe to that. If it's worth it, let's go now.
Yes.
If it's worth the initiative, like you said, we went into the holidays going, we're gonna implement fitness and wellness goals before the holidays get here. Going into the holidays, I don't mind. You know, our plan was, okay, we can eat like crap for a day or two. Mm-hmm. But when the Christmas season turns into 5 or 6 weeks, I think the average person, I can't remember what it is, the average person gains, I think it's 13 pounds between Thanksgiving and the beginning of the year. And it's because they treat it as an entire season, and they completely give up on everything for a season, rather than Thanksgiving dinner. Sure, eat all the turkey and stuffing you want. Maybe the day after, eat some leftovers, and then boom, right back at it.
Right. And I think that needs to be your philosophy with any kind of goal, because the reality is there are going to be times where you get off track. And if you become all consumed with the fact that you got off track, then it's really easy to go, well, I already blew it. What's the difference?
That's what I mean. The 11th of January rolls around, and you don't go to the gym that day, and you're just like, I'll wait till 2026. I just see it as too many potential stumbling blocks for me personally. Maybe that's just the difference in my personality. But I
different approaches.
Yeah, and I mentioned something earlier. What are your thoughts about things like reading through the Bible in a year?
I think it's a worthy goal. I also think that it doesn't mean you have to read an exact prescription. You know, there are a lot of times there's like, here's a chart, these are the verses you need to read. If you're doing that just to check a box and you aren't truly spending time with the Lord, then I think it's an exercise in just performance for God. And I don't think that's, I know that's not what God's asking of us. I think it's a worthy goal because it does keep you on track, and it's something that gives you a little bit more structure. And there are people that definitely need more structure than others. My thought pattern is like, well, am I really getting something out of reading 2 verses out of Leviticus if I'm not reading the whole scope of the story? I'm a big picture narrative kind of person. So sometimes those programs set you up to read 2 or 3 scriptures, and then you're in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And I think it becomes challenging, but I do think it's a worthy goal. If you're doing it for the right intention, which is to spend time and grow in the Word.
Yeah. Yeah. For me personally, I could never do it because it always felt like quantity over quality for me. It always, you're reading some of Psalms every single day because Psalms is such a long book. You're reading some of Psalms, you're reading some other Old Testament, and you're reading some New Testament, and you're blitzing through it so quickly that there's no time to meditate. And if there's something that really starts pulling on your heartstrings, you're going, but I don't have time to pause here. I got to keep going because by the end of the day today, I'm supposed to be at, page whatever. So YouVersion always sends out a push notification in their app. Hey, start a Bible plan, reading through the Bible in a year. For me personally, I need to sit and be methodical for me to comprehend. I need to be methodical about my studying. So reading through the Bible an entire year, it never made sense to me. If you can do it, more power to you. But, to meditate on something is to be hyper aware of something.
Do you think that you can do that in small clips throughout the day? If you had 4 chapters, let's say, to read, couldn't you meditate in the morning on the few chapters that you read and then go back in at lunch and do it again? And there is a way to still meditate and digest and mull over what you've read.
Maybe it's not
depends on the person.
Yeah, it probably depends on the person. For me, I need to sit down and concentrate on what I'm doing.
Yes,
I'm not going to I have man brain. I'm only capable of doing one thing at a time.
Right.
So I cannot be sitting there building emails for Calvary and meditating at the same time. It's one or the other. So for me to bring my entire day to a halt 4 times a day, 365 days out of the year, so that I can purely focus and meditate on something is a really tall order. I think, one day when I retire, that might be a different story. That's probably a great discipline to have. But I think for me, just the slow pace, I mean, if I meet somebody, I have to meet that person a dozen times before I'll remember their name.
Oh God. Don't I know it?
I'm like,
we have already met this person like 5 times.
This person's been to our house and had dinner. And I'm sitting there going, I don't remember. I can remember a face. And so for me to read through the Bible at the pace that's required for reading the Bible in a year, I would be reading so fast and retaining so little that for me, it wouldn't be worth it.
Yeah,
so
I
mean, my goodness, there are some books, I think I would be hard pressed to read the book of Psalms in a year and truly study it the way that I need to study it to retain it and glean from it what I feel like I need to glean. Because like you were saying, some of the stuff I love the most is just understanding the history and the context. You get none of that when you read the Bible in a year. You're reading to read, where I need to go back and refresh my memory. What was happening? What was the world like in Leviticus?
Yeah. What was the culture like? What were the people, what their responses would be based on living in that culture at that time frame? I think that's the kind of meditation that gives you a deeper understanding and depth to the word that just reading it just off the page, you don't get unless you slow down.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that I enjoy the most. I enjoy the apologetics, the logic of it all. And, and I don't, it's not like I want to sit and put God in a box and say he's limited to logic or anything, but just understanding his thought process or the Israelites' thought process or King David, pick anything and everything. And I just love to understand the context and put myself in that situation.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going to retain something. So I may not remember that somebody came to the house for dinner, but if you talk about, remember that time where I made this certain dish and then we did this and then we, and you recall the evening for me, I'm going to be much more likely to remember that over a person. A person, like memorizing a name, forget it. The chances of me remembering that is literally almost nothing. Whereas you recount an evening, I may not remember. There's a pretty good chance that I may not, but it's certainly higher than remembering just a person's name.
Okay, fair enough. So what are your reading plan? Like if you don't do a reading plan, do you have some plans to work through certain books this year?
Not books so much. I know our Wednesday night Bible study, we're getting ready to start the book of Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Calvary Chapel is getting ready to begin. I believe it's First Sam. Yeah, I believe.
I'm writing devos for it already.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the plan is to do the life of David. So there's a lot of emphasis happening right now on the Old Testament, which I love.
Me too.
Because so many people focus on the New Testament and for good reason, not that there's anything wrong with it, but the last
couple of years.
Yeah, since COVID, when COVID came, Pastor Bill was doing the book of Revelation. Mm-hmm. We've gone through just almost virtually every book in the New Testament.
Yes.
This is the first time in a really long time that I've seen him teaching in the Old Testament, which I love. Same thing at Calvary Surfside. We've been in the book. We took, I think it was like 2.5 years on the book of Acts.
Oh, I know. That was super long.
Yeah. So we've been in the New Testament forever, and Calvary Fort Lauderdale, it's been, a good amount of New Testament. So I'm definitely ready. So I don't have a reading plan per se, but I am excited to spend a lot of time in the Old Testament this year.
Bill does an incredible study in Genesis. I mean, just knock your socks off. There's so much information in Genesis, and he hits everything, just letter by letter, verse by verse. It's incredible.
Yeah, he is a good teacher. So that'll be nice. But yeah, I think for me, the New Year's resolutions for this year it's really just discipline. Inconsistencies that I see that need to become consistencies. So it's just, how do I get that discipline to keep that? You just wrote a Devo. What was your Devo about for honoring God and kind of the mundane?
No, it's basically the name of the Devo. Okay. So glory in the. Gosh, I don't even remember the name of the title. It was basically talking about the Ark of the Covenant coming back into Israel after the Philistines had captured it. And those moments of victory and celebration that you have, amen, you should be praising God for sure. But there's so many things in the day-to-day that deserve God's attention and praise. And those are the things that when we do that well, and we walk in gratitude and we walk in the acknowledgement that none of this is owed to me, but yet you love me enough to give me a job and a home and a family that's healthy, and all of those things need to be acknowledged. And that was the basis of the Devo, is reminding myself as often as I write a Devo is really written to me first, because I need to be accountable to what I write, and then to invite the readers to do the same.
Yeah, I think well, you look at things in the Old Testament, like the manna, mm-hmm. and how a miracle of that magnitude became mundane, and they forgot just how critically important it was. I don't remember the statistics behind it, but
Joe Focht does a talk about
he does a great
breaking
study.
It down to how many pounds would have fallen from the sky, how many people needed to be fed.
So
it's like 1 million people.
Yeah, it's 2 million. I think it was 2 million people, and that's the size of Miami. So if you think about the size, a group of people the size of Miami out in the middle of nowhere needing to be fed daily. And I remember him, I don't remember what the numbers were, but he correlated it to a number of freight cars worth of manna that had to be delivered on a daily basis.
From heaven.
Amazing out of miracle. Nowhere. And they sat there and they watched that miracle over and over and over, and it became mundane for them. Mm-hmm. And I think part of the discipline is, how to honor God with the mundane. You and I even talked about it when we were talking about your Devo.
Yeah.
Just the miracle.
Our conversation just really helped prompt me to go, wow, that's something that needs to be written about.
Yeah. Just the miracle that was our marriage, just getting us together and becoming husband and wife. You can easily get caught up in the mundane of going through the motions of going to work and this, that, and the other, and get to the point where your marriage is no joy mm-hmm. in serving, not realizing just how lucky I am to have you, and hopefully you feel the same way. It can get very boring if you let it. And to me, it's working on the discipline, right? And that's, we were even talking prior to this episode about Calvary House.
Yes. How many people are successful after leaving that structure? Like if they had any statistics.
Yeah. So
and for the audience might not knowing, Calvary House is a recovery-based, that was about a year long.
Yeah, it's a residential program. I think now they've kind of changed things around to where it's like there's 2 steps in the program. So the first step is 6 months, but it's basically if you're addicted to drugs and alcohol and you've tried everything else, they have this place in Calvary, Fort Lauderdale called Calvary House, where you can, Calvary House for men and Calvary House for women. And it's a residential program. They put you up with housing for free. It doesn't cost anything, but
you work for your room and board at the church. So
you do.
That's also a discipline. It's like you have to really, it's kind of like the concept of gleaning in the field. Like the welfare system God set up for Israel was you can glean the fields and pull from the outer edges of the field. But if you want to work, if you want to eat, you need to work. And that's the same concept that they use.
And I love it because the program, it creates discipline, right? What's the saying about idle hands?
Oh, it's the devil's workshop.
Yep. So what they do is they basically force discipline, if you will, where every minute of every day is accounted for. Yeah. There is no time where you're sitting with idle hands.
Yeah. I always say a bored man is a dangerous man.
Yeah. So,
and I don't mean that in the respect that a lot of creativity can come out of boredom, but when boredom becomes a point where you're now, I got to do something, and it becomes dangerous in the respect that you're spiritually not aligned with God, it could be very dangerous.
Yeah, it can absolutely be dangerous, but that's what Calvary House does so well. Those guys get up at 6 a.m. They do a workout from 6 to 7, 7 to 7:30. They're going to shower and get dressed. Then at 7:30, from 7:30 to 8:30, they're having breakfast. Then
Bible studies.
Then they had to work at 9 o'clock, literally every moment of every day, so that they do not have idle hands. And it's that discipline of just every day we're going through the same things, the repetitive motion. And that's what they do really well over there.
Right. Do you think that that's attainable outside of an environment like?
Well, so one of the things that you were so adamant about us talking about today was accountability partners. Yeah. How we want to hold ourselves accountable. It's so critical to find someone that can sit there and go, hey, you haven't done X. This was a goal, a promise that you made to yourself, to your spouse, to God, whatever it is. I'm seeing that you're not doing it. A, someone that will do that.
Yes.
B, someone that you're not going to be offended when they're telling you something that you don't want to hear. You have to have those in place. I think it's tough. Some people can do it without that accountability partner, but I think the vast majority of people need to find at least 1 or 2 people, if not surrounding yourself with people that make you better than what you are today.
Amen to that.
So,
yeah, you have to find the willingness within yourself to take critique, because it's hard to hear like, hey, you're not living up to the word you put out. Like you're not being, this is integrity now. You said you were going to do it.
Yeah.
I trust that you're going to do it because I believe you want to be a man of your word or a woman of your word.
Yeah.
And if you can't self-critique, it's really hard to take someone else's critique. So that's super important when it comes to discipline and when it comes to goals.
Yeah. And, one of my downfalls is I'm so forward focused. I don't turn around and look behind me very well to assess. I'll assess well in the moment, but that's like, if you were to ever ask me to tell you stories about me in elementary school, I virtually remember nothing. You can ask me all sorts of things, but it's because I'm so forward focused in where I'm going. It's much more important to me where I'm going than where I've been, which is a good thing, but it can be detrimental.
Sure, because you learn from where you've been. And I think I've learned tremendously from where I've been compared to where I am now. Like if I didn't have a benchmark for all the hurt and pain, I wouldn't know how to make better choices, I think. Like some of those poor choices are benchmarks to my much better decisions moving forward. So I think looking backwards has helped me be a more forward thinking person, because I'm like, ooh, I don't want to repeat that. That was painful. Or, it's like touching the hot stove. There's a direct correlation to pain that makes you remember, oh, I'm not supposed to touch that. So those pain benchmarks are really helpful so that you don't keep burning your hand off on the stove.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not that I don't remember. I often remember learning experiences like what you just mentioned about getting burned by a stove. I'll remember that significantly more than I'll remember, things that happened on family vacations or whatever it may be. So at least I have that aspect of looking back, but my memory going backwards is all my energy. Almost all of it is focused on going forward. So that's something that I do have to work on for sure. But at the same time, there are times when it works to my advantage because I also can shake off failure very, very easily.
Yeah, that is an amazing attribute, because I see that you're not afraid of failure, which is really interesting, because a lot of people get debilitated.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, I land in that camp more often than I'd like to admit, where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, because I've already predetermined all the what ifs, and that prevents me from wanting to do it, because I think, what's the point of trying that hard and failing?
Well, because you learn how to get back up again, right?
Sure.
Today, when you landed on your tuchus,
hard.
What would have happened had you not dusted yourself off? We never would have went to the basketball courts, and you never would have had the fun that you had.
Right.
We had to get you back up.
Yes.
Let you get your wits about you. And
honestly, if we want to talk about accountability, had you not been there, I might have. There was a good chance I would have been like, forget this, I'm too old for this nonsense, and went back in the house and watched TV. Possibly. But I really did want to skate. I would have said, okay, maybe I'll just wait until the roller rink is opened.
Yeah, but I think failure does paralyze people. It's so amazing teaching people how to drum. Mm-hmm. For the audience that doesn't know, I play Japanese drums, and the word in Japanese for drum is taiko. So you'll hear people call it taiko drums, but they're literally saying drums. But okay. I played taiko, and for a long time I taught it. And the differences between teaching adults and teaching kids was worlds apart. And most of the time it was because the adults were so worried about what other people, it's awkward to drum. It's not drum. You don't play it like an American drum. It's not wrists. It's all lats. It's very athletic. Mm-hmm. And it can feel very awkward at the beginning when you're reshaping your muscles. And literally what you need to do is what your body naturally does, but people resist it.
What do you mean what your body naturally does?
You're naturally very strong when you relax. If you relax, you're actually stronger, and what you do is you relax your entire body, but you tense up right at the last moment. But so many adults are just so tense the entire time that they're completely winded and can't drum after 30 seconds.
Yes, I've tried. I know.
Yeah, but it's interesting to teach children. Children don't have that fear of failing that adults do. So
I think we give them that fear.
Yeah, it's something that's definitely taught. Our society teaches you to fear messing up. And so children learn significantly faster, and they have much more joy at the beginning than adults do. Adults a lot of times don't enjoy the beginning, and they're so worried about messing up, getting a rhythm wrong, that they'll actually almost talk themselves out of the joy of just drumming.
Wow.
And
isn't that interesting how that correlates to Jesus saying, you must come to me as a child?
Yeah.
Like, wow. Now that you're saying it, it makes total sense.
Yeah. The child, they don't sit there with their head down and go, oh man, Michael, I messed up. Oh my gosh. They just dust themselves off and go at it again. And they were like, yeah, okay, I'll get it next time. And even if they don't, okay, I'll get it next time. And it was incredible the differences. They just, when they mess up, they're able to let go of that mistake.
That's beautiful.
Almost instantly. Everybody in the class knew that they were trying to do it right. They just didn't get it. So, okay, so what? Yeah. Yeah, it is something, one of the things that I've learned through the many years of drumming is just to accept the mistakes before they happen. Not that I'm trying to make mistakes, not that I'm excusing them, but they are going to happen, and you don't want to be paralyzed when they do happen.
Yeah, you
how
said that
horrible.
To me
how horrible a Christian am I because I lied, or and insert any sin there.
Right.
And again, I want to be very clear in, you don't, just because you accept it before it happens doesn't make it okay. Just understand that that's like, God has so much grace.
Yeah.
That, okay, yeah, you messed up. He knew you were, guess what? He knew you were going to mess up before you ever did it. So don't run from him. Don't run from that grace. Accept that grace. Be grateful for that grace.
Yeah, that's wise.
And get right back up on the horse.
Yeah, they correlate the will to live with the will to be uncomfortable and to keep going.
Yeah.
And I saw some meme not too long ago about it, and I was like, oh, that makes total sense, because you're literally training yourself to fight for your life in your later years.
Yeah.
And I see people that give up a lot. I wonder what their elderly years are going to be like.
Yeah. Yeah. Our teacher in drumming, just, we call him Sensei, he hated running. He hated running with a passion.
Most people do.
But
I hate running.
He would force himself to run, and we live in Florida. He would run in the early afternoon.
The hottest point of the day?
Because he wanted to force himself to be so uncomfortable and miserable. And he would do a minimum of 5 miles a day at doing the one thing. Like he was like you. His entire career was fitness. Mm-hmm. And the thing he hated most was running, or, darn closest to the most was running. And so he would force himself minimum 5 hours or 5 miles a day at the worst time of day in Florida to run.
God bless the guy.
But he's a machine. And just the level of discipline that both him and his wife have are incredible. So I think, that's where Christians, kind of looping us all the way back around. Mm-hmm. If you're not uncomfortable with what you are trying to do, creating a new muscle or a discipline, you have to be uncomfortable. It's that voluntary exposure to something uncomfortable that does create a resilience in you, and that will over time create discipline and so on and so forth.
The spiritual life as a whole can be a very uncomfortable journey. Like, people have the impression that are, new to the faith, that they're going to give their life to Jesus and everything is just going to magically get better. And that's totally not what happens.
Well,
I mean, it can happen. Don't get me wrong. It can happen, but
it does. Even to you, right? God helped you with your smoking.
Oh,
instantly,
he took it
was
instantly.
Gone. But there were other aspects that you were struggling with.
That journey of fighting for my life, the new life that God promised me, it took a lot. And I just kept going back to him and saying, well, you're good. And I believe you. And because I believe you, I know that you can walk me through anything. I can't do this in my own strength.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the areas where people being afraid to fail, one of the great things that you and I have watched lately, if you guys know him, there's a philosopher, Jordan Peterson.
I like Jordan.
Jordan does a lot of great stuff, but Jordan recently interviewed Dallas Jenkins, who's the creator of The Chosen. And it really was, I don't know, it was probably 2 hours and 15 minutes, maybe 2.5 hours, but it's amazing. Jordan can get very deep and philosophical and so on and so forth, but this was like 2 hours and 15 minutes of Dallas's testimony.
Yeah, it was good.
So it was a totally different interview for Jordan Peterson. And one of the things that I'm focusing on for this year is getting better. Dallas talks about how in the midst of a movie that he made that completely failed, that was the birth of The Chosen, and the passage that God gives him is the feeding of the 5,000. Yep. And he focused on the loaves and the fishes, where all God was asking him to do was bring
the loaves
and fish, and let him worry about the multiplication.
Yeah.
Where in the movie industry, you know, you're judged by how much money your movies make. And God told Dallas, hey, let me worry about the multiplication. And so Amen. I think that's kind of our focus, at least for me anyway, the focus of this year. Yeah, we did talk about it. Well. Is just, all right, what are our loaves and fishes? God, you've given Deb talent. You're an amazing writer.
Thank you.
I've got, you know, digital talents and so on and so forth. How do we focus on the loaves and fishes and not the results?
Yeah. And that's hard at times, but that was so convicting to me listening to his testimony and really freeing that I just need to show up and be what God has called me to be. And what is yielded is really his. Yeah. You know, like I gave a friend of mine who I know is not a Christian, I have a Devo called Woman of Worth. And it just is my experience with Jesus, looking through the Bible and saying, wow, look at all these ways that you treat women and how radically different that is than any other world religion that I've studied. And I wrote a Devo, and I know that she's not necessarily a reader and may not be completely interested in the topic, but all I need to do is provide that, and God will open her heart if she decides to read it and speak to her. And if she doesn't read it, that's no reflection of me. I provided the loaves and fishes. What God does with it is on God.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times you can insert all sorts of kind of cliche statements like leading a horse to water, but can't make it drink and so on and so forth.
Those cliches actually, they're there because they have some element of truth to it.
They do, but so many times we're focusing on, is the horse drinking?
Okay.
Not the fact that it's our job to bring them to water. And if they don't want to take a drink, then that's fine. But we did our part. We brought them to the water.
Right.
And we get so focused on, well, but the horse didn't drink.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's so many times, you know, the seeds that fall on different types of soil, right. You don't plant a seed and immediately harvest it.
It takes time.
You plant seeds. Some of them are going to fall on rocks and get blown away. All sorts of things happen. And the ones that do land in soil, you water them. Mm-hmm. Still, some of those can get choked out by weeds. You know, there's so many things, but especially because I love apologetics, so many times you can see people making an argument in apologetics and immediately trying to harvest that seed that they're planting. And no, you just need to answer those questions and plant those seeds.
Amen.
Absolutely, you can harvest. You know, sometimes that will happen, but so many times we're so eager. We want what we want yesterday.
Oh,
right?
Isn't that true?
I order something from Amazon and it shows up tomorrow if I'm on Prime. So yeah, you gotta pace yourself.
For sure. I think even with the apologetics is the processing of time. And someone really, like we said about the reading through the Bible in a year, you need time to digest the answer. You've sought an answer. You got an answer. You may not like the answer. It takes a moment in time where you're like, okay, let me mull this over. And then another question might happen. But you can't harvest, like you said, right away.
Yeah, I think it's
Do you have any apologetic goals since you love that so much? Like, do you have any?
Maybe, but I think to circle everything back around how we got on this is, you know, what are some of our goals to bring loaves and fishes? It's not the multiplication that's our responsibility, and it's also not the timing of the multiplication that is our responsibility. Mm. So just keep bringing loaves and fishes, and eventually you will absolutely witness Jesus doing something amazing. I think so many times we bring loaves and fishes and we present them to God and we go, okay, I want to see my miracle. Yeah. We don't have the patience to sit there and see a prodigal son go through a process that God's got under control. We go, but God, I'm bringing my loaves and fishes. I'm praying. I'm inviting him to church. I'm doing what I can do, but I'm still not seeing salvation. And I think so many times that process that also is for that prodigal is for us, because we're sitting there telling God, but where is it? I'm planting seeds. Where's the food?
Mm-hmm.
And he's going, well, we gotta water this. We gotta give this time.
It's a good point.
So I think, that's also part of the discipline that I need for this next year is just getting away from the instant gratification and just bring the loaves and fishes, trust God with the multiplication and trust God with the timing.
Yes.
That's 2 areas that I'm just not good at.
I'm not great at that either. We have some things coming up in, our healthcare with parents. And this year showed me that over and over, I'm not in control. No matter how much I think I can control a scenario, I'm not in control. And things take a lot longer than you want them to take.
Can, for sure.
Everything that 24 showed me was everything takes a long time. And I have to be growing in patience with the Lord in that. And that, to me, is always one of those, to me, that's a dangerous prayer because I'm like, oh no, you're going to test my patience more in 2025. But it is something that you learn over pain points. And mom's healthcare was a massive pain point this year. And the only way to keep going forward is to do everything that we can do and stop expecting instant results, right?
Yep. Especially some of the stuff that we've learned with Dad, and he gets all these veteran benefits because he served in the Navy.
We're hoping he's going to get those benefits.
Yeah, he served during wartime. He served in the Korean War. And so he is on the table for all sorts of benefits, but that is a government institution passing those out. And they don't do anything efficiently. So I think,
or quickly.
Yes. So I think that's, there are options like that we can select and just go, okay, we're going to do something different. And for me, it is the stoplights in South Florida it is they are so bad. Coming from Chicago, where everything is so efficient from a street light perspective, and coming to Florida, where nobody expected Florida to explode and grow the way that it grew. Thank you, air conditioning. Prior to air conditioning, Florida, nobody wanted to live here. Yeah. And so street systems, nothing was built for a lot of people. Where Chicago has been a large city for a very, very long time, and they know how to move traffic. Yes, you hit traffic on 294 and so on and so forth. But
every light, Mike's like, this is so unnecessary.
Unnecessarily long. You're just sitting there staring at intersections, and every car is sitting there staring at one another, and no one's going through the intersection.
So how are you going to improve on that in 2025? Yeah. Let me hear, because I am here to support you.
So I think we touched on it earlier. It's idle hands. I'm sitting at a light and my brain is now idle.
Oh.
So it defaults to frustration.
Okay.
Because I'm in a situation where I'm sitting still and I can't control it, and it's extremely inefficient.
You do feel uncomfortable with sitting still.
Oh yeah. I have to be moving, like I have to be doing something mentally, physically. I have to be doing something.
It's the ADD, man.
I don't know what it is, but yeah. So
So what, you're going to drum on your steering wheel? Will that help?
That's a good idea. Maybe I can do that. I can start writing songs every time I get to a stoplight.
Yeah.
That'll give me purpose, and I won't focus on
the unnecessarily long Florida light.
Yeah. Nobody going through the intersection, even though we've been here for 3 minutes.
Oh gosh, God forbid 3 minutes. The one up the street's like 10.
Oh, I know. It's so bad. So yeah, that's something I will be working on. I can distract myself with drumming on the steering wheel.
There you go.
People think I'm weird, but so
who cares?
Exactly.
People always think I'm weird.
So yeah. So what are you working on this year?
I am working on, I want to be able to get a book a month accomplished.
Okay.
And I don't mean sitting down and reading, because I'm an auditory learner. So I have a library app, and I'm driving every day for, my total commute time is an hour and a half every day. Not one way, but total.
Yeah.
That's plenty of time to get a book a month in. So I already have my first book for this month. It's Jesus, what is it? Choosing Jesus in the Culture or something. And I'm going to do that. That's one of the goals.
Are they all religious books or just whatever strikes your fancy?
Yeah, I tend to go nonfiction more often than not.
Okay.
If not, I like to do historical fiction, which kind of gives me a little bit of a, oh, well, this, like Francine Rivers does a lot of really good historical fiction through the Bible. Kind of like watching The Chosen. You're like, oh, that really registers. Wow, I never thought of it that way.
Sure.
So maybe some of those, possibly, but predominantly nonfiction. I want to continue to grow in my faith. And sometimes people just walk through a journey and they're able to articulate it in such a way that really makes you go, wow, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So a book a month is definitely on the table, and I need you to hold me accountable. So if you can just ask me once a month, hey, what was your book this month?
Yeah. Accountability partners can really make or break resolutions. So that's one of the underlying themes that you'll notice is surround yourself with people that are better than you at what you want to get good at.
Amen to that.
And use them as accountability partners.
Amen. And I need to have a year of fun. I am very fun driven, and I haven't had any fun in 2024. And that's my responsibility to bring the fun. I can't expect people to make my life fun.
That's a good shirt. Bring the fun.
Yeah, I'm going to bring the fun. That's my goal. So today was the very first day, and I brought the fun. I brought roller skating, and we're doing a podcast, and that's fun to me. So 2 things on the list right now. So.
Right now. There you go. All right. Well, yeah, we'll hold each other accountable, and we'll certainly check in on things.
So you're the stoplights.
Yeah, several things. For me, it's just, I think I've noticed men struggle more than women do with prayer life. So I definitely want to get better at that.
Do you have any idea why you think that might be?
Well, I think for me, my default is with anyone is only have conversation when I feel it's necessary. I call my dad on Christmas. I call him on Father's Day. I call him on his birthday. And I love my dad. My dad's my best friend. But if I don't have anything to say to him, I'm not just going to call to check in and go, hey, how you doing? How's life? Tell me about work.
Gosh, I know I married you.
It's so out of the norm for me. And I think men are more that way than women. And I'm speaking on just like a holistic level. Yeah, they're definitely right. Everybody knows the guys that are extroverts and they
sure,
talk your leg off. But I think for the most part, like you'll notice men's conferences at church are always smaller than women's conferences.
Yeah, men aren't as social.
And so I have to, like I said, I call my dad when I have a purpose. I call my mom when I have a purpose. I call friends when I have purpose. I need to get better at talking to Jesus when there is no purpose other than I want to just ask him how his day is going or tell him about my day, because I have struggled with that in the past, and I notice other men do too.
It's an intimacy thing.
Maybe it could be. I don't know. I'd have to sit and unpack that really well. It certainly could be. I'm not afraid of intimate conversation at all.
Right.
It's just not normal for me. It's one of those, it's just one of those things that I have to make it a point to do it. Otherwise I won't do it. Some people getting up early and going for a jog, that's normal for them. They're morning people.
Right.
That's natural for them, and it takes no effort for them to do that. But for me, I'm not a morning person. That would be a tremendous amount of effort. Still a good thing to get up in the morning and go jogging, but for one person, it's more difficult than another. This is just one of those areas for me, the mundane. God, let me just tell you about the mundane, because you know what? It's coming up on year 5 on our wedding anniversary. I can look at our marriage and go, it's mundane, and be ungrateful, or I can look at it and say it's mundane and I'm still very, very grateful for it. And I think the more I thank God for that mundane, the more grateful I will be for it, because I do love the fact that, Monday through Friday, you wake up, you go to work, you're giving me a kiss before you go out the door. I can sit there and not appreciate that, or I can appreciate that.
Right.
We get to, I get to cook lunch for you because I work from home. I get to cook lunch for you for the next. I can sit there and
I love that.
Yeah, I can sit there and go, oh man, I gotta cook for Deb again, or it can be, teaching me to.
I get to versus I have to. That's a big difference in how we look at life. If we look at our lives as I have to, it's radically different than I get to.
Yeah, I've seen so many different things where people will walk through the subway and there's a musician sitting there playing.
Yes, I've seen those videos
where they're just outstanding,
oblivious.
Yeah, and people literally don't even stop, and it's some world-renowned concert pianist or violinist that's sitting there, and people are so caught up in what they're doing that they don't even stop to appreciate it.
I don't ever want to be that way.
Yeah, it's easy to say I don't ever want to be that way. It's another thing to be disciplined enough to stop, go for a walk, listen. If heaven and earth are rejoicing in God and what he's done, go take a walk and listen to birds chirp, because that chirping gives God glory. The wind blowing through the trees gives God glory. And if you're sitting at home, like I work remotely, if you don't get out and go on that walk, you'll never hear birds glorifying God. You'll never hear the trees and the wind. And so making that conscious effort to go, hey, this could be mundane. I could just go for another walk, or I can sit and appreciate this and have
mindful.
It change. Yeah.
It's meditative.
Yeah. Constantly doing things with a purpose rather than just doing things because this is what I always do.
I like that. Those are good goals.
Yeah. So those are the things that I'll be working on.
Stoplights and prayer life.
Yes. Stoplights, prayer life, just discipline in general. I think I know mentally where I need to be. It's just the act of, okay, now I just got to do it. Okay.
So let me ask you, what's the best way to approach you if you're at a stoplight and I'm in the car and you make a comment? Would you like me to say something? Would you like me to just
the old Italian backhand?
No, I don't want a backhand.
What?
Nah, that's not effective.
You look at me all the time like you want to take a swing at me. What are you talking about?
I mean, I feel like my face can deliver the message better than my hand can.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Woman of many faces.
That is so true. Yeah, just give me a look.
Okay.
The disappointed wife look.
Stop it with that. I don't have one of those.
Oh, yes, you do. Yes, give me the disappointed wife look, and I'll know what you're referencing.
Okay. And I welcome the opportunity for you to ask me, and if I'm not living up to my end of the bargain of my accountability goals, for you to call me out.
All right. In love. I don't like to say call out. I think that makes people feel like I'm above you. I'm not going to call you out.
Okay, fair enough.
Approach you and go, hey, Deb, I noticed.
Yes, that works.
Yes, that's what I will be doing.
Okay. Score. And we'll fill the audience in 6 months on a brief, we won't do a whole episode again if we're fulfilling our goals, but I think we need to be accountable. I marked it on my calendar in June that we'll mention how we're doing on our goals that we set in December.
Yes, if we don't talk about it before then.
Well, true.
So,
true.
All right, guys. Well, happy 2025 to everyone listening. We hope you're having a great year so far.
Oh, you're one day in, so this is the first day.
Yeah, by the time this airs, it's a few days in.
Okay.
I think it's like the 5th or something when this episode gets out there. So hopefully everyone is off to a great start. Everyone should be heading back into work. This will be coming out the first Monday of the year, so everybody should be heading back to their normal, regularly scheduled programming by then. So happy 2025, guys. Hopefully you can relate to some of the difficulties and ideas that we had as we were talking about how we want to improve in the next year. Mm-hmm. But thank you guys so much for tuning in.
We love you.
Absolutely. See you next time.
Take care.